Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ Dhammaṃ Sanghaṃ Namasami. I decided to talk about the comments today here in the Kuti, and on this one day someone seems to be having an extended Christmas party, so I don't know whether you can hear it. I can hear some music. It's not music that's familiar to me, but it must be quite loud from wherever it's coming from for me to hear it clearly in here. So that's part of the unpredictability, uncertainty, unsurety that we all face in everything we experience. Anicca. There is that unsureness, uncertainty, as well as impermanence. And what comes with that is our dukkha, suffering, which, when something that's causing us to suffer ends through impermanence, anicca, will go away. So anicca has both positive and negative sides. And our suffering is just as a result of our desire not to have something that is there, or to have something that we have not got, which we all know. I'm just reminding us all of our purpose in this practice to become free from that suffering in this lifetime, if at all possible, or at least try and attain to a level of well-being, both mentally and physically, but especially mentally, that we have wholesome mind states more so than the unwholesome mind states, until such a time that all arising unwholesome mind states dissipate and go away also, leaving us free from desire and clinging, attachment, and therefore free from suffering. So I couldn't have picked perhaps a worse day to just decide at random to talk to you from here. But there is method behind my madness. I was expecting some people to come on the 27th, which it is today, I think, for sharing of merits for departed loved ones. And they could well still be coming. I'd imagine they are, but I did ask them that they came in the morning before mealtime, but this gets lost in translation, so they may appear any time. So I didn't want to disappear, just in case they've come with all of their things and expecting me to be here. I didn't want them to see a closed door and an empty room. So for that reason, I'm staying here. The music, the cars, the traffic, it doesn't bother me. I really hope it's not going to intrude too much on your listening. So I've had some comments which I will retrieve from my pinned apart, my alms bowl, and find those. I might have to. I haven't really. I try not to. I skim through them, and then I sort of copy them to a place amidst the, separate them if you like, to try and find the questions. But I try not to read through them too much, because it's Well, I think it's better for me, it's better for you, that my answers are spontaneous and not really thought about too much. And I appreciate some people make a lot of effort in thinking about their question or comment, which is nice if you want to air your views and opinions. But I'm here to share my experience of the Buddha's teachings from the Pali Canon, from the Vinaya Pitaka, from the monastic rules point of view, but that is also very appropriate to sustaining moral virtue in lay life, because it covers lots of areas of that also. But also the Sutta Pitaka, the teachings, the words of the Buddha in the Pali Canon. My practice is such that I take all of that rather literally, and I'm not that interested in reading anybody's, regardless of their own status in life or qualifications or views. I'm not that interested in reading long opinions and theses on somebody's ideas about something in the Pali Canon, and then to respond by way of, what are your thoughts on this? How is your take? What are your perceptions on this? Frankly, I don't need to read all of that stuff. I can just read the Pali Canon, the Buddha's words, practice what the Buddha taught us, and see how it works for me. Now, this is what the Buddha said. So I'm very happy to hear about your difficulties or perhaps problems you may be having with your practice of meditation or keeping sila, even with the development of wisdom. But this long, in-depth report on your views on a particular subject you may have heard or read, maybe in a different Dharma talk or a different documentary or in a different book outside of the scriptures, and then to me to give my views on that, I'm firstly not qualified to do so, not experienced to do so. Thirdly and finally, I'm not really interested to do so. I don't want to waste my time or others speculating on all kinds of random ideas of philosophy. I am practicing the Buddha's word, the word of the Buddha, as best I can. Now that may not be anywhere near as good as it could be, but it is my very best efforts to keep sila, practice samadhi, and develop panya, moral virtue, meditation, and wisdom. It's that simple, in order to realize the simplicity of that anicca, dukkha, anatta, as I just discussed. So, air your views by all means, but please don't be offended if I don't read them in depth. It's not what I'm here to do. I am a monk, a Buddhist monk of the Theravada tradition, practicing that. So let me just deal with a couple of very good questions in relation to that. Firstly, is being proficient in Pali a requirement for ordination as a Theravada monk? No. And about how long did it take you to learn Pali well? And about, it's not how you've read, it's my reading. I need some new reading glasses. I do have some, but I broke them. But as you've probably seen, I never wear them. I hardly ever wear them anyway. Sorry. And about how long did it take you to learn Pali well enough to read, understand suttas, chanting, etc.? Well, I haven't learnt it anywhere near, I haven't learnt it at all. I haven't learnt Pali anywhere near enough to read Pali in terms of the suttas in Pali, in order to understand them. I have read the suttas, the Vinaya Pitaka, the Sutta Pitaka, and the Abhidhamma in English, in the English language, my mother tongue, translated by reputable translators like You've heard of Tanisaro, Bhikkhu Bodhi, all of the usuals that you've heard of on the other channels that get quoted so often. So in that sense, I've never read the scriptures or even the chanting in Pali first and then endeavoured to translate or learn Pali. I've had to, in order to give myself saddha, faith, confidence, to chant all of the chants we chant in Pali, the Ratana Sutta, Mangala Sutta, Karyanamitta Sutta, all of these core teachings of the Buddha. I've had to learn them first or read them and understand them first in English. And then I know I'm chanting something that really means something to me and makes sense. But that's by no means learning Pali like learning a language, learning to speak fluently in French, German, English, Hindi, Sinhalese, whatever. It's just learning the necessary words, which then through the years I've been practicing, not so much studying but practicing, of course, the words like dukkha, anicca, words like, all of the usual words that I'm often quoting, but I usually always say in English first or closely followed by the English word, I have picked up through using them. Because often, like the word dukkha, it doesn't translate very well into the English language. And even nibbana, it doesn't translate into any language because it isn't part of convention, it isn't part of this world we know. So I use the Pali words, but by no means can I be credited with understanding it, as you may be under that false impression. So as far as your question is concerned, you don't need to know Pali or any language to become ordained as a Theravada monk. Now there may be some monasteries and some other traditions that have different requirements, but certainly it hasn't been a requirement in the I probably wouldn't be practicing in monasteries where they said you don't come here unless you are a fluent Pali scholar. This wouldn't be my cup of tea, because if somebody quotes verse after verse at me in Pali, my response is not, oh, you're such a clever person, well done. It's, could you please repeat that in English for my benefit and others listening, please? This is what I would say, because that is the case. I cannot listen to Pali unless it's verses like the chanting that I'm very familiar with and immediately understand it. It is better that I listen to suttas or read suttas in English. And this will be the same for you. If you wish to learn Pali, it is very good indeed. And you have the time to do so, it is fine. But if you're wanting to ordain as a Buddhist monk, you should be prioritizing and establishing what your goal is. And that should be to become free from suffering in this lifetime. That is my goal. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe it should be to become, to have a PhD in the Pali language or something like that. Well, it's not my goal. That isn't my goal. And I don't think that should be, that you can do that in a university, wearing ordinary clothes, leading an ordinary life. But to attain to Nibbana, one is going to achieve such attainments more quickly in this form, in the monastic form, whether a monk, a bhikkhu or a bhikkhuni, to be able to practice wholeheartedly 100% of your waking day, whether it's mindfully in your everyday activities, walking around, going about your business, or in the temple, chanting, performing various ceremonies. It isn't really for an occupation of study and learning, which is occupying your mind in another capacity. It could be, it could be said that this is developing the ability to concentrate more by stretching the mind's depth of knowledge, intellect, but I would say that is somewhat diluted by the very fact that it is also training the mind to be more prone to be going outward looking for more information rather than to becoming calm, settled and tranquil and going inward to see what is already there, to see and realize what is actually clearly visible to us in samadhi, and that is this calm state of being, of tranquility, of peace and contentment and happiness. And this is what our practice should be about. Now if you can do all of that and then still have time for study, for learning a language, for this and that, then that's also nothing wrong with that either. We all have different ideals, different aims in our lives and things we wish to fulfill for different reasons. And it may be that you feel you're more used to the world to become a fluent translator, to translate such things for many other people, than to try and practice for your own benefit. But this is entirely up to individuals that there are. But one must remember in this day and age, where there is so much available, what is it that we can do that now hasn't been done, or very, very well indeed, and is also accessible to most people in the civilized world these days, in the palm of their hands. So that's really, as you say at the end of some of those longer comments, what is your take on that? What is your view on that? Your thoughts, please. They're my thoughts. That's my take, my view, my perception. Don't think too much. Practice. Just do it, as Ajahn Chah said. Ajahn Chah wasn't a Pali scholar. He learnt Pali probably as much as he learnt his own native language, because he was a Thai, grew up in Thailand. He's a Thai person. And in their schools, like here, they're learning the chanting, the suttas in the Pali language. And also it's similar to their languages, so they're developing an understanding. That's very different than from a Western culture where it's an entirely different concept. So, but he was by no means an intellectual. He only did a few grades, or whatever you'd call them, years at school before he eventually went to have to work and support his family, and then he ordained and became a monk. Yet he attained arahantship in his lifetime. So this was through practice, determined practice in the way the Buddha has shown us. No other way, and no other consideration given to other people's views. All he gave consideration to would have been his teacher, the Buddha. My teacher, your teacher, our teacher, the Buddha. And closely followed by his disciples, and in that lineage the Sangha, whom are only conveying as best they can those teachings from the Buddha, but more so practicing in the way he showed, in order to, by example, teach us an alternative way of life to become free from suffering in this lifetime. I hope I haven't sounded too naggy or moany-groany. That was not my intention. But sometimes I'll read a big long thing and I think, I get to the bottom of it, I think, why are you telling me all of that? And I'm not directing this at any particular individual. I get many, many long comments like that from many different people. And I think, well, you know, there's no need, unless you're, of course, addressing it to the whole audience that may be looking at these comments, in which case that's fine. That is your domain. But if you specifically at the very end ask me a question about it, well, I will get to the question at the very end, because I cannot help but read to the very end once I've started. This is just human nature, isn't it? But I do then think I've just wasted 3 or 4 minutes reading a long comment and even thinking about if there's anything to do with my practice contained within it that I should reflect upon and therefore then comment upon. But I don't. I like little questions like this. Do you need to speak Pali to be a monk? No. Yes and no answers. That would be really good, wouldn't it? I don't mean to sound facetious, and this is not my intention, I promise you. I'm just trying to make it a more smooth process and easier listening, really, because there are many channels to choose from, and they all do different things. And this, I'd like to keep it as it is, a comfortable way of listening to practical Dharma. I hope the noise isn't too much for you. It doesn't bother me in the slightest, but I'm not able to know how you're hearing it there. Today is actually the Uposatha. It was the Poya here in Sri Lanka yesterday. You might have heard in my last talk. They move it slightly one day or the other to make it closer to the weekend, or in this case a national holiday, which was the 25th, Christmas Day. So Poya was the 26th. But the full moon of December is today, the 27th, and this is Uposatha for my Sangha in India and in Thailand and in the rest of the world who follow the Thai Forest tradition calendar. Uposatha today is today. So on this day, I reflect on my precepts, how well or not I've been keeping them in this last 15 days since the new moon, the last Uposatha. And when we are able to get together with our Sangha, our brother Bhikkhus, our fellow monks, we recite those 227 rules in the form of what is called in Pali the Patimokkha. But I'm unable to do that, being some distance from them in a different country. So I have the opportunity to reflect on those myself, ask myself how well or not have I been keeping them, and then make a determination, a declaration, renewing my purity from now on. If there was some serious transgression, then I would be in touch with my Sangha to discuss it with them. Do I need to run back quickly to India to be admonished, to be responsible for my actions? But as this is not the case, I can just declare, ask forgiveness for anything to myself, really, just in my mind, in thoughts. But we do have a little chanting we do privately as a lone bhikkhu, practicing alone on this day. So it is a day for reflecting on Sila. It's like I'm getting 2 Uposathas every month here at the moment, because it seems that the Poya is always slightly different one way or the other to Uposatha in other places. But that's no bad thing. The good thing is that they do take it very seriously here, especially the full moon. It is a national holiday, so they are very understanding of the importance of that day. So at least one day of the month, the whole country closes down, everything's closed, it's a national holiday, like a weekend, like a Sabbath, and they are of a mind to Dharma. Even if you haven't been practicing the last month, you're probably going to go with your family to the temple, you're going to see monks, you're going to offer dana, remember your dead relatives, etc. And this is very important. One day a month is held for that purpose. So whatever day they have it, I don't mind. That's wonderful that they do that here. But from my point of view, I like to keep also to my Uposatha in synchronicity with my own Sangha in India, so that as they're within the same time zone, at the same time they have their ceremony, I practice my recitation also and feel part of where I've come from. So on to the next question. If I can't... Oh, the music started up again. I thought I didn't notice it finished, actually, and then I've noticed it start. It's usually the other way around. If I can't sit in the Burmese, music actually is an unusual thing. I've never heard that before. Much piped chanting, I call it. These cone speakers they have a lot of still in Asia, that you usually hear at protests or something, or policemen have to shout at traffic with. They have these on poles, and like in Muslim countries where they have the call for prayer, a lot of the chanting is piped like this in the morning and evening. So sometimes that is the background sound, but it's slightly different to what that was. It's gone now anyway. If I can't sit in Burmese posture for over an hour and for several days in a row, will a monastery let me stay? Yes, of course it will. You'll get used to the sitting. We're not expected when we go to stay in a monastery to be rubber men. super normal, what are those people who can twist themselves up? People in circuses that can twist their bodies up. No, we're not expected to be anything of the sort. It isn't a macho pursuit. It may seem sometimes, comments I make, oh, I only eat once a day, I just sit on the concrete and I don't mind mosquitoes biting me, that this is some kind of macho proof and some ego thing. Well, of course, it's really not that. It's just about keeping everything as simple as possible. So just sit comfortably. The only things you have to bear in mind is there's some etiquette, and I have made videos of how to sit properly in terms of polite position. Basically, you don't point your feet towards monks or Buddha statues, Buddha rupas, or anyone really. In Asia, you keep your feet behind you, so you won't see my feet ever. I shouldn't think, because the way I sit in front of the phone here is as if I'm sitting in front of a person, and I wouldn't expect them to see the soles of my feet. So this is something to bear in mind, because it's a little bit it's insulting and it's rude in Asian countries. But other than that, sit however it is necessary for you to sit. Maybe roll the mat up a little bit. What I will discourage, always discourage, is unless it's a Western sort of place that caters for all kinds and has lots of equipment, there's no need to be carting around expensive zafus or expensive wooden fold-up meditation stools and all of this equipment. You've got enough to deal with travel. And that stuff, taking it into a group meditation environment, is frankly just a little annoying for the other meditators. Along with the clinky aluminium water vessels, the wooden fold-up clanking stools are probably among my pet hates. I can take any amount of heavy breathing, coughing, burping, all manner of bodily noises and not be bothered with it whatsoever. It's something that one has to accept is natural, and not everybody is in the most comfortable environment for themselves. So you have kindness, you have metta and compassion for people who might make all sorts of noises, even people snoring. They need sleep. It doesn't matter. It's like the traffic. It needs to go from Colombo to Gaul or Gaul to Colombo. It doesn't mind that I'm meditating, and I don't mind it's making its journey. It is just sound. If I go out with my auditory senses and say, oh, you, sound, are annoying me, I'm bringing the annoyance up, this anger, this not wanting, this desire to not have within myself. But if I accept that this is just the ears hearing sound, and my perception, my awareness of the sound is based on what I'm used to. Oh, that's cars. I know they're cars going from A to B or B to A, lorries, buses. They make a noise. But I don't need to form any more judgment than that. It is just a case of knowing. Ears hearing sound, sound meaning and understanding. You're sitting near a road. No more needs to be said. We're not sitting to listen, we're sitting to bring our conscious awareness inside, to focus on just the meditation object, until such a time that the meditation object becomes so subtle, along with the other senses, even bodily feeling, all disappears. This is what we do, wherever we are. So please don't worry about having to sit in, I just can only think of the word ventriloquist, but it's not that. That's someone who can speak through dummies like this. But a twisty-up person. You don't have to be one of those, or even good at yoga or anything like that. But do try and develop the ability to sit comfortably on anything, anywhere, because it's very useful. I don't need to carry any cushions or mats. We are supposed to carry our sitting cloth. This is just a more an Indian and a Not so much in Thai, we didn't. It seemed they never carried their sitting cloths when I was there, I don't know. But we do, that maybe have just been my monastery, but we do usually have to sit on this, I've forgotten the Pali word for it, this sitting cloth. So it's one of our extra bits of cloth. Keeps our robes clean, this is the point of it, but it also, if we were dirty, keeps wherever we're sitting clean. But it's just a thin piece of material, the same material as this thin robes, maybe double thickness, but it's no more than that. But when you've developed the ability to sit on anything, anywhere, then life's so much easier. You can meditate anywhere. And I've had to throughout all of my travels, which now is a huge long list of things and places that I've been doing over these years. But my practice has been meditation. And with all of that traveling, I've had to continue this practice of meditation. And I've not, except on some very few occasions, been in what you might consider a meditative environment. Even when I was in the jungle in my own kuti, it's really not conducive. You've got very loud jungle noises, you've got many things biting you, including venomous snakes coming at you from all directions. You know, this isn't considered by most as conducive to meditation. Or I could be in a railway station, a busy railway station, Gorakhpur railway station, I remember so clearly because I had such wonderful meditative experiences there, beyond any I've had anywhere else. And it's the most unlikely place you would expect such a thing to be able to happen. But I've been to meditation centres where you've had little cells of more or less sensory deprivation, absolute silence, and I've sat. It's really been no different at all. No different from Gorakhpur platform 78 or 13 or whatever it was. Because it's not what's going on outside, like the silence we hear now as the traffic stops. It's what's going on inside. So at the end of this very long one, which is actually very interesting, these long comments, I mean, they are very interesting. I'm not saying they're not. They're just, I would be going off the course of subject matter for what this channel is talking about, to go in some directions. But this is actually in the right direction, but too long for me to read now. Unless I could really sum it up. I think I'll leave that one for another time. As you say at the end, I know there's not a lot you can say. Then I'll take that opt-out and not say anything. But I will next time, because I know you're talking about something that is relevant. I just need to pick it about and find a concise way of putting it. Thank you all for wishing me well for my speedy recovery. And this is, it's not too early, because I think it's only, I don't know what the date, how long it is, a few days, it's a week away whether I'm going for this small operation. Yes, I appreciate that, your concern, but I'm not ill, I'm not suffering any more than usual age-related discomforts. It's I'm being a little careful, walking on arms round Pindapat and carrying all of the goodies back with me. But that is our practice on Pindapat. We don't have to walk slowly, we walk quite quickly, very quickly. If you've seen videos of alms around, generally the monks are walking quite quickly because we cover a good few miles, a good long distance, 7 kilometers in my case, many houses. But we walk mindfully, carefully, looking just ahead where we're placing our feet, keeping our back straight, our head up, chin up, eyes just cast in front of us. So avoiding rapid steps and things like that up, and carrying I put my Pindapat this side and this bag this side, so that I'm balancing the weight as best I can. And really I should perhaps not be carrying so much. And after the surgery, I won't be able to carry anything. Walking is encouraged. I have had this operation before, you see, 14 years ago, 15 years ago, something like that. I couldn't be sure. The other side of my tummy, and this is now the other side of my tummy. And the other side that I had repaired before is still fine. And I'm having the same surgery, slightly different, but the end result's the same here. So I'm confident it will be no problem at all, and I don't consider myself as ill or suffering in any way, but I do appreciate your concern and very kind comments. And you say, do you meditate as you wait for surgery instead of focusing on the last thought moment? Okay, I'm not quite sure I understand what you mean by the last thought moment, but whether I'm waiting for surgery, and let's say that really doesn't bother me so much as perhaps if I was waiting to speak to one of my senior teachers for an admonishment. We have it's a very beautiful way of being told off as monks. Your boss doesn't just shout at you, say, you've done that wrong, do it right next time anyway. Like, it's done as a very beautiful procedure. It has to be, as in the 5 ways to speak nicely, yes, that I've spoken of before. It has to be the right time, it has to be, and place. It has to be truthful, it has to be kindly said, it has to be useful, and it has to be coming from a place whereby you're not committing that same offence yourself. So if you're telling somebody not to drink, you shouldn't be drinking yourself, for example. So I have had on a couple of occasions in Thailand with my teachers, have had to call me for admonishment. Now, they will not speak to you, say, before the meal in the morning, because you have had no food for 24 hours, so who knows how upset you might be. The emotions could be exaggerated through lack of blood sugar, as I've now learned through some other recent tests I've had, or just being hungry and irritable. Hopefully this is people waiting for a bus to come along. Otherwise I've got a whole lot of people about to come in here. In which case, that's great. But I might lose my train of thought on this question. The good thing about here is I can see people coming if I'm looking out of the window. So they find the right time. And usually what happens is when you're washing up your bowl after the meal time, one of the not so senior monks will say that Ajahn so-and-so needs to speak to you after, when you're ready, say in 10 minutes. And you know that's going to be admonishment, because there's no other reason for that to be arranged so at that time. So that is a time when I would be considerably more anxious than about to go under the knife surgery, because that is, I'll be asleep, or I think I'm having what they call an epidural in England, a spinal anaesthetic for this operation, so I'll be able to watch. This will be interesting to be able to watch the surgery if they allow me to. And maybe I'll faint, I don't know, but either way, I watched them cut my finger off. That was very interesting. So I'd like to be able to watch this surgery. It's all part of our understanding the nature of these bodies not being what we believe ourselves to be able to watch things like that and not feel the pain at the same time. So yes, I don't get, I think you're referring to being anxious before something. Do you meditate? In a way, I practice anapanasati, you could say meditating. If ever I feel any form of anxiety before an admonishment, for instance, I would just watch the breath. Breathe in and breathe out. And just know that that is all I have in this moment. So if you mean by the next thought moment or the past thought moment, this moment, by watching the breath, you are bringing yourself as best we can into the present, into the moment, and into the body, where we can really be having a sense of reality, what is going on in this moment, rather than our perception or expectation of the future. So if you're expecting to be admonished for this and that and the other, then you're going to be worrying if you've done those things. Or even if you don't know what you've done, say you've drunk some soy milk, as I did, thinking that was okay, as an allowable in the afternoon, and it wasn't, but I didn't know it wasn't, so I didn't know that's what the admonishment would be, so I was very worried. I was thinking, what have I done, what have I done, what have I done? And I'm going through 227 Patimokkha rules, you know? And then thinking, oh, there must be something outside of that. What can it be? Because there are thousands of Vinaya rules. You know, these are just a summary, the Patimokkha, 227. But instead, it's a short time, breathing in, breathing out. And knowing also that whatever it be, whether it's long or short, will also be over in due course. It isn't permanent either, however long and serious the telling off is. Whatever its results are impermanent. You may be asked to leave the monastery. I mean, this I think very rarely happens, but maybe you're asked to leave the monastery. Well, you're just going to find another monastery. Someone will have you. You may have a few days wandering. I do that anyway. You think this way. And with the operation, it has to be done. It's just like having my car repaired, except, in fact, having my vehicle repaired when it was the place I lived, it was my home, when I was living in a van, was I think more painful or mentally than any operation, because I was never sure, being in a cold country in the winter, whether I would get it back at night in time to be able to sleep within have shelter that night. So that was mentally worrying, and also I was less advanced in the practice then. So no, I'm not too, so do I meditate? I'm always meditating as best I can. This is really the advantage of having nothing else in your life when you're a monk, other than being a monk, nothing else going on, I should say, is that you are always really watching your actions of body, speech and mind with as much mindfulness as you possibly can. And this is practicing meditation. In terms of if you can develop your abilities to go into absorbed states, into samadhi, prior to such events, then you could do so, but I mean, you'll probably find on most occasions when you're in, when there's something pending, something you have cause for concern about, it isn't a good moment to go into samadhi, because you could really cause yourself some problems. You have to be fully awake, just really practice mindfulness. It's also, I don't know, I'm only going from past experience, I don't know how I will feel next week or whenever it is. Maybe suddenly I will become anxious. Maybe I will see a very unpleasant scene when I arrive that doesn't inspire confidence, and maybe these emotions you're thinking about, maybe in your question, will arise. This is what I will be able to be aware of and see how they arise and see how I react to them. Is there equanimity? How is it different to 14, 15 years ago? I'm not sure I can really remember that, but I can remember very clearly having my finger cut off, and that was in the early stages of my practice. So I think it was just prior to my practice, really, maybe, I can't remember, but we'll see. It'll be interesting. I'm sure I'll have to comment about it further after the event, but thank you for asking. Long one. Long one. Oh, yes, I answered that yesterday. I better move that one. Do you have any recommendations for retreats? I live in Ireland, so you might know some around Europe, etc. Willing to go further afield. So I having never been on a retreat myself, cannot first-hand recommend them. I've been a monk at retreats in my own monasteries where people have come on retreats, and I've helped teach and practice meditation, and I've helped with teaching on Pabaja courses. This is where people take temporary ordination. Men come and they ordain to be a monk for 10 days. So I've worked on those, but that's a little bit different to a retreat because it's also about being a monk for a while. But retreats myself, I've never been on them. I've never been on a Goenka retreat. I went straight in at the deep end, straight into a monastery. And I'd been practicing meditation for a long time before that, at home, with online teachers. So group meditations, group retreats. Group meditation was new to me when I first went to a monastery, and there were other people meditating next to me. But by then I thought, this is not any different, you know. I'm meditating. What's going on around me is no different to if I'm at home and the next door neighbours turn their TV up, watching football or something. In fact, it's less distracting having people next to me. My comments with regards to flappy wooden stools and aluminium rattly water bottles are from a helping at these retreats, teaching point of view, and I can see the individuals with this equipment coming into the meditation hall, and where it's okay and accepted, I'm not able to say anything, but I can also understand that anybody new to meditation must be thoroughly irritated by such chinking and clanking around them, which is unnecessary. I think when you're meditating, there's no eating or drinking necessary. I know we should keep rehydrated, but do it beforehand, but not too much. If you're drinking water all the time, you're going to need to get up for a pee. That is a fact. Unless you're very highly attained and you can go for many hours holding it in, then a skill you have to learn in India, where the toilets on public transport routes are few and far between, and when also given the opportunity, there are many joining you. So if you're if you're a monk, it's very difficult. We have certain rules as to how and where we can go to the toilet. So you as a monk, but even probably as someone with a slightly nervous disposition or nervous bladder, you have to maybe travel for 9 hours on a bus, unable to go to the toilet. So you wouldn't want to be drinking lots of water out of your aluminium bottle in that situation. But yes, the day before and the day after, you can rejuvenate the body, and I'm sure it heals any damage done. I've gone right off track there, and I think I've probably spoken for way too long. Retreats. So I can't actually recommend anything specifically, but to anybody, whatever country you're in. Find one in your own country first if you can, and I know it's difficult, but if you Google retreats in Ireland, I think you'll find, and I've also sent you the link, Sunyata Buddhist Retreat. It's actually an Ajahn Chah Thai Forest Tradition Buddhist Monastery in Ireland. I don't know Ireland well, or where it is. I've got a feeling it's in Southern Ireland, in about the middle, not far from the coast, at the bottom of Ireland, but I don't think Ireland's very big. It's a bit like Sri Lanka. So you could go there. They hold retreats, Google that, and anyone looking for retreats, Google retreats. But as far as I'm I'm sorry that I know you're looking for recommendations. Who could you ask for such recommendations? I mean, read the comments, very carefully, because comments that you read on, I think, Google reviews aren't necessarily 100% right all the time, but with discernment, read through reviews and find retreats online if you can that way. But I can't specifically recommend any myself. Monks, you see, we don't go on retreats. I mean, we may have retreats at our monasteries, but the monasteries I've stayed at and live at don't really have retreats either. They're places where monks live, whom are practicing all of the time. So, if you just excuse me a minute. 5 minutes only. I'm ready. Okay, I'll be just with you. So that's my call after that, I think, to timely end my talking. I hope there's something useful there for you, and if not, you can just let it go. Gamini's arrived, and that reminds me that I did ask him to come to take me into town, because we're going to acquire me a new pair of reading glasses. And also I need to get a couple of passport photographs taken for my visa application. So as he's there, I don't want to keep him waiting, and I'm sure he's got some tourists to be looking after also today. So as he's there and I'm dressed for the occasion, I will jump up. I have to cover this shoulder when I go outside, as you know, parimandala. But other than that, mine's gone blank. Namo Buddhaya. I was thinking where I was sitting. I'm not on the beach, so one has to remember such things. So be happy and stay well. Sukhi Hotu.